Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to be discussing something that a famous author named Gwendolyn Brooks described as an delicious agony, which is writing. And this is something I've been doing for a decade. Professionally, I've been doing it since I graduated with my BA in English and minor in literature from IU. But I recently graduated from NYU's grad school last December. So professionally, I've been working in the writing field for like 5-6 years. And it does not get easier, but it gets more fun and you get better at it the more you do it. So you're tuning into this, video because I'm going to talk about the fact that I am one of Ta-Nehisi Coates' former grad students. So at NYU they had this course called Writing for Reporters, and it was offered in the spring. This was my second semester, and this would be the first round of courses my second semester. So since everyone and their mother and their father, sister, brother wanted to get in this course, you had to write a 1,000-word essay on why you want to be in the course, what type of writer you see yourself as, and why you like writing, why you love journalism, why you like reporting. And also, backstory, I majored in journalism, and my concentration was cultural reporting and criticism, which is the CRC program. But he was offering this class. You have to write a 1,000-word essay, and I got in, and I was really happy. He only selected 10 students for this course, so I was so stoked. I was nervous but so excited. I was going to meet one of my favorite authors of all time. He's definitely top 5 my favorite authors, thinkers, journalists, essayists, everything. So the first day I got there an hour early because I wanted to get a seat right next to him. One, this terrified me, but two, I was like, when am I ever going to be able to say I sat next to Ta-Nehisi Coates while he taught a writing course? So I'm no fool, and I got there early, and I sat next to him every single day until the last day of that class. For the whole semester, I came early to sit next to him, and this caused me to really be on my P's and Q's, if you want to say. I had to make, I'm always prepared when I go to class anyway, but because I'm right next to him, that holds me to such a high standard, and it made me keep myself accountable that if I sit next to Ta-Nehisi Coates, I'm probably not going to be quiet in class. I'm probably not going to, second guess myself if I have a thought I want to discuss. Like, I'm going to try to impress him, and that's actually going to make me better as a writer. And in my concentration of journalism, with being in criticism, is going to make me better with talking and everything like that. So, got in. And I was, on TV and on, the interviews that he does, he seems very down to earth, and he seems very kind. But you never know, like when you meet your favorite celebrities and famous people, like he would never want to be called a celebrity, but he is famous. So when you meet famous people, they could be different, and he was different. He was better than I thought. He ended up being like the rapport that he had with the classes. I'm just another writer like you, and I'm no better than you. I've just been doing this longer, and I'm going to show you, some things that you can take away to hopefully make you really, soar through this field, because this field is very hard. And he really humanized the writing process for us. He would bring in edits of old essays he did. He brought in edits of Between the World and Me. He said he started that book over, not like a couple chapters over. He started the entire book over at least 3 or 4 times. Don't quote me on that, I'm pretty sure that's what he said. And he brought in edits that his editor would send him saying like, no, this doesn't work, like this isn't strong enough. And that really made me and the rest of my classmates feel like, oh, like at home in this profession, and kind of like, okay, if Ta-Nehisi Coates is getting these edits back from his editor, then who am I if I'm getting the same edits back? And it just made us feel like we weren't failures, basically, because that's what you get when you write a piece and you edit yourself, and then you send it to your editor, and then they have all these red lines on it, all these comments. You're like, should I write anymore? Like, but the fact that we saw kind of the same thing with Ta-Nehisi, it made me like I was breathing. I was like, okay, I feel a lot better about another thing that he did was he did not ever say to us that writing gets easier. He never said the writing process. Oh, he never, like, he was like, oh yeah, like I wrote, case of reparations and this and this and this, and he talked about starting like the Water Dancer and everything like that. And he never said, yeah, it's easier and it'll get easy for you and you guys will. He was very frank with us. He was like, it does not get easy, but this is the survival of the fittest. This shows you if you are a writer, if you are a journalist, and if this is really your passion. Because if something doesn't come easy and you don't want to do it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. And I've always felt like that. Like every time I start a writing piece or work, whether it's a story, a novel, an essay for school or not, if it's freelance or for a magazine or whatever, that anxiety and that just agony, like Gwendolyn Brooks said, the agony of just looking at a blank page and like typing words, and hopefully the first sentence sticks and your mind will go from there, and then you get 3,000 words. Hopefully that happens. But a lot of the times it's you staring at the page, you writing an idea down, you editing it, you writing a paragraph thinking it works, reading it again and be like, that sucks. And it's an agony. It's a delicious agony, because once you really get in the flow of it, and once you really the words start flowing, the words start coming to your mind, it's the deliciousness. But it hurts because you know that it's going to take a long time for you to get a final piece. And not only that, you're going to have to edit it, and you're going to have to take out a lot of the work that you put into it. But that's the process of writing. It's writing, it's reading, it's editing. It's writing, reading, editing, and editing and editing and editing. And this is someone else to edit, and then you write more. It's hard, but it's something I would never give up, because I absolutely love writing, and I have such a passion for it since I was a child. And that can be a different video of me talking about why I write. But I want to talk about 5 things that Ta-Nehisi Coates taught me personally, and maybe it might be universally for the whole class or whoever listens to him. But me personally, these are 5 things that he taught me. He taught us more than 5 things, but what I really held on to after that first day really helped and transformed my writing. I mean, I was sending my friends writing pieces that I was doing at NYU, and like whether it was freelance or whatever, or academic essays, and I was really happy with what I'm writing, and what I wrote was good, was really good. But they saw such a transition after and during the course I was taking with Coates, and I saw it too. And it's funny because the pieces I was doing for Coates took a lot longer because I took his advice. So I'm going to get into that. So number 1, the thing that he told us, like I said, writing should take a long time. The reason why it should take a long time is that you should not rush yourself. So it's funny because, he would talk about, one day he might write a paragraph. One day he might write 20 document pages. One day he might write a sentence. For me, I realized that before I could write out a lot and get all the words out, but then when I would go back to edit, it took twice as long, because I'm like, a lot of this does not matter. A lot of these sentences sound like this sentence doesn't make sense with what I just wrote, in the chapter above. Like, so now when I write, I literally, and this is what he said, each sentence should be like a brick, layering the foundation, and that each sentence matters and it should not be air. And this is a lot of things that we do when we're in high school. If we have to meet a word count, say 1,500 words, and we only have a good 900 words in us, and we're like, we just fill in the gaps, the other 500 words with just stuff. He said that's, I mean, we all know it's lazy and it doesn't work, and it's going to crumble your entire point, while you're writing, and your entire piece. So he said, as long as it takes and as hard as it is, that's each sentence. Do not go to the next sentence until the sentence prior is exactly what you want. It's more figurative. So what I do now is I'll write a sentence and I'll write another sentence. Like, I'm like, okay, this works. This sentence does not work. And I'll keep looking at it and I'll keep trying to figure out how am I going to make this make sense to my reader? Because the thing is like, yes, you can, when you're writing, of course it makes sense to you because it's coming out of your mind, but you have to assume your reader does not know anything. Like, don't assume that you're not doesn't know anything, but doesn't know what you're about to say about this certain topic or subject or whatever, or story or fantasy you're about to bring them into. So assume that you need to tell them everything, but don't bore them with a lot of information. Like, keep it entertaining and also keep it concise. Anyone can explain something in 5 pages, but not a lot of people can explain something in a paragraph. So if you really know what you're talking about, you should be able to explain it in a paragraph. You don't want to say something that you can say in 3 sentences in 3 pages. Because your reader, 1, they'll get like, okay, get to the point. 2, they might know what you're saying and feel like you're being condescending by like spelling it out too much. And 3, just they'll put you down. You know, they'll just like, I want to go and watch Netflix. Because why should they be reading what you are writing? Like, you need to give them a reason why they are taking time out of their day to read what you have to say. So the endurance, though, picks up the more you write and the more time you take with sitting and making sure the sentences matter and are good and are new and are fresh. And once you just have that in your mind to not rush, you inevitably will get quicker at writing good stuff, and that will make the writing process shorter. It might not make you writing things less short, but you might not be editing what you're writing as much, and that is what I have found with this new writing process. 2, do not be a pretentious writer. He taught us that, and it's and not that he would come across as someone that's pretentious, but writers that reach a certain level, people might assume their writing might be elitist, whatever. But his writing is really accessible. I feel like he does use words that you might have to look up, only because it actually needs to be there and it matters. But for the most part, I feel like his writing is really accessible, and he does that on purpose. So for us, he told us, don't be a pretentious person when you're writing. Don't, because your reader is not going to trust you, and your reader is not going to really like you. Like, your reader can disagree with what you're saying if you are being kind, right? But if you are like writing, even if they agree with what you're saying, they'll be turned off because they're like, you sound like you are like arrogant, and I don't want any part of this. So he showed us how to do this. He said, don't write like this to your reader. He said, write like this. Like, take them on a journey. And this like, not take them by the hand, like you have to come with me and read everything. But like, if you want to come, take my hand and I will take you on this prose journey inside my mind. And it's a gentle gesture, like, come on. But never this and never like, come on. It's just like, come on. And that stuck with me too, to make sure like I am being accessible, I am keeping my reader in mind, and I'm explaining myself thoroughly. Number 3, make it sound beautiful. This is something that writers do but don't really realize. And one thing he did that was really cool is we would read like reporting pieces and works and essays and books, but he'd bring in poetry a lot. So he would always throw in some poetry each week for us to read along with what we have read. And he wanted us to see how a poem works. A poem is only so many stanzas. A poem can only do so much, but in the poem, the poet makes sure that there's imagery and that they pick the right words to say so much, because they can't write a lot out or else it'll just turn into like a book. That's the point. So that is what he wanted us to take that type of structure and put it in with our writing to make it sound beautiful and say a lot by saying less, and have a rhythm too. So there's one thing that he did that I'm actually going to pull it up, but he edited our pieces, which is really cool. And one thing that a note that he made on one of my pieces was that, let me see. I was talking about the frustrations I was having when I was seeing like Alton Sterling dying and Philando Castile dying, and I had this fantasy I was painting to the reader who said, I watched the ceiling over my shoulder, picturing a pile of bricks outside on the porch. They would be perfect for destroying their things. I left it at their things. And one note that he said was, we need more clarity here. What are the things? He's like, be like Baldwin, be deliberate, be specific as he is. And I'm like, okay, yeah, what are the things I'm thinking? So then I added, I could use them to shatter the windows of their building. I could smash their computers, their printers, their water coolers, their vending machines. And I would go to their office. I would break their mugs that say boss. And in like, this is so out of context, you're probably, what? But I use the idea of rhythm here, and I use imagery, like, and usually someone might say, I could smash their computers, printers, water coolers, and like, that sounds very boring, but being like their computers, their printers, their water coolers, their vending machines. With that, so now I'm not afraid to like repeat myself, and be very deliberate, like when you want to say, and don't be afraid to overuse a word if it's for a purpose. Like when I said their computers, their this, their vending machines, their, like, something about how that sounds really good. And sometimes it's just about making something sound good, like music. Like that can be like, that's kind of like the instrumental background of that sentence. It just sounds good when someone's reading it. Like there's no escaping what I'm saying. I'm saying there, and I want you to really, and by repeating there, you kind of hear my anger in it. So that's something I learned, and that's something I utilize, and that's something that's really worked for my writing, because it's something I've always wanted to do, but I felt like it was redundant, and it's not. 4, don't use assumed language. Don't use assumed language, meaning don't use language that everyone uses. I can give you some examples. Safe spaces, monolith, navigate. I want to navigate myself through this safe space because we're not a monolith. Everyone says that. Say something different. What else? There's so many words that people use. White spaces, white supremacy. The reason why he says don't use assumed language and like these empty phrases is because it's like a skip in the CD. When someone reads that, one, they've heard it so much it means nothing, and 2, it's a word that everyone now has used in their own way. It's a terminology that people have like refashioned to mean what they think it means. So by saying like a safe space, right? Okay, someone's definition of safe space is different than mine or the person next door or next to them. So be specific in what you mean. Like Make sure your reader sees what you're saying. Like, no, I mean this. So don't use safe space, because people have their own definition. And one thing that he did that was cool, and this has never left my mind, like in the Between the World and Me book, instead of saying like black people assimilate to whiteness, or black people assimilate to inside white spaces to it's like a survival mechanism. So someone might say black people are going to assimilate to whiteness when they go to the office, so that they don't seem like a threat, right? Or something like that. But he wrote in there, black people contort themselves to fit the standard, or something like that. But he used the word contort, and him using that word alone saved him like a paragraph. Contort. When you think of contort, you think of something that is shaping itself into something that's not natural. Like contortists, they make their bodies do things that should naturally not happen. So when you think of contort, you almost think of someone like looking unnatural, looking uncomfortable, looking and doing something they don't want to do, right? And so by saying that, it's like, yeah, that is how it feels. It feels like I'm contorting my body into a standard that's not, that my body is not fit for, that my identity is not fit for. So stuff like that, contort, you know. And also he used the word bloody heirloom when he talked about, instead of saying white privilege and white supremacy and stuff like that, he said that the generations before passed on to, you know, the descendants being white people now, a bloody heirloom. And an heirloom, one, is a generational thing passed down. Bloody means something was killed for this. So saying bloody heirloom is like just like a beautiful imagery, and also says so much. And like, they pass on white privilege, because everyone says white privilege. So you want to make sure you're not using words that in language that is just assumed language, that's very generic. Don't use generic language. And 5, be confident in what you're saying. Be confident in your voice. One thing I struggled with when I was doing my undergrad in English and writing and literature was I still am obsessed with Toni Morrison, but I didn't know I was doing this until one of my professors called me out, and she's my mentor still today. But she's like, she said to me, you sound like Toni Morrison here. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. Like, that's really nice, you know? And she's like, no, that's not a good thing. You're trying to sound like Toni Morrison, and therefore other people are going to see that, and no one, she's like, you'd agree, like, no one can be Toni Morrison. I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, why are you trying to be Toni Morrison? And I wasn't trying to be Toni Morrison, right? But because I wasn't as confident in my own writing voice, instead of being inspired by Toni Morrison, I was, you know, borrowing her confidence and her voice a little bit to put my voice. It's like hiding behind someone when you're scared, and like being there, but you're not really there, because all that person sees is that person, and they're speaking up for you. And I would use Toni's like voice and how she writes to speak up for my voice that I felt uncomfortable with. And it wasn't until the end of getting my BA was when I kind of broke out of that. And then, you know, doing professional writing until I went to grad school 2 years ago, I'm very comfortable in my voice, and I have a different voice, and I use humor. I use a lot of imagery. I have lyrical sounding sentences that might, well, they're always grammatically correct because they have to be, but they definitely are, I would say they're kind of innovative, and to where people might not piece these two words together that I might use, but then be like, oh, well, yeah, that actually fits. I would have never, and that's not something like I'm the only one that does it. Like, writers do this, but because I've broken out of the mold of thinking like words have to fit with certain words, like peanut butter goes with chocolate, and peanut butter only goes with jelly. No, peanut butter can go with butter. Peanut butter can go with, meat. I don't know. I'm thinking of something. But like how a chef looks at ingredients and there's no boundaries, like thinking outside the box, like they're like, ingredients can go with anything because I can make it good. And that's what writers think and know. Like language and our diction and the prose, the words, we have to think outside the box, because how else are we going to form new sentences and not, keep saying the same redundant sentence like the other writers around us. Like everyone comes up with their own thing. That's why it's so important for everyone to have their own voice. But yes, that's the most important thing, is you have to be confident in your writing voice and what you're saying and what your thoughts are, because if you're not confident in it, your reader will not be confident to finish what you have to say, and they can tell, because we could tell. That's one thing that he did on that was really cool. He would bring in essays, and he would never tell us, like, I'm going to bring in an essay next week that doesn't work, and I want you to tell me why. So he'll just have us read an essay, and he'll be like, what do you guys like about it? Wait, and we'll be hesitant to be like, we don't really like it. Like, it kind of sucked. But he'd be like, yes, this essay's not good, and I'm glad you guys, realize that. But you have to be confident even to call out things that aren't good, and know writing that's good from writing that's not. All writing isn't good. It just isn't. Every dish from every restaurant isn't good, but the ones that are good, you pay a lot for, and you'll keep going back to. And that's why these writers like Ta-Nehisi Coates and other writers, people literally have such a hunger for their work, because it's so good, it's delicious, and that's what you want your reader and your followers to like about you. So 5 things. Writing takes a long time, all the time, but the more you do it, your endurance goes up. 2, don't be pretentious. Don't be a pretentious writer. Don't do this with your writer. 3, poetry helps. Consolidating your words down in your prose to say a lot more with saying less, so you don't bore your reader. And 4, don't use assumed language, don't use generic language. And 5, be confident in your voice and be true to yourself. So that's what I've learned from Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm going to have a link in the description box so you guys can follow his work. I'm going to have a link to one of a video that he talks about the writing process and breaking through in writing and not giving up. Do not give up. If you know you're a writer, don't give up. And if you like this video, like it, comment, write something. Don't write nothing generic, just kidding. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.